everybody. Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of chatting with bassist Ricardo Martinez.
Hello.
Starting from the beginning, Ricardo, as always, we like to know a little bit about you and your journey so people can kind of get to know you. How did you get started in music and on bass?
Well, that's a funny story because I was about 17 years old. I'm 51 now. I was about 17 years old, and we were a group of friends in Venezuela. I'm from Venezuela originally, and we wanted to make a band. And one of the guys had money enough to put up a place, in order for us to play the music, whatever music we wanted. We were tired of playing the same kind of, commercial music and dance music, whatever. And we wanted to play some funk, some jazz, so that guy said, you know what? I'm gonna build a place so we can play any kind of music we want. Super. The problem was that person was the drummer. It was a huge group of friends, and that was my first instrument. Actually, that's the first instrument I learned was drums. Mm-hmm. So I was a drummer too, but I was the youngest, and he was the guy with the money. So, there were a singer, a keyboard player, 2 guitar players. He was the drummer, and they all looked at me and said, you know what? I played a little guitar, and let's play some bass in order to start the project. We'll wait a couple months until a bass player comes and then we go from there. I said, okay. That was 34 years ago, and I'm still waiting for the bass player to arrive.
There you go.
So one thing led to another, and I just fell in love with the instrument. And funny story is that I started playing drums, then I started music with the guitar. That was my instrument. Mm-hmm. So when I play guitar now, people are like, oh, you play guitar? Because they don't know that that's the instrument I started music with,
sure.
Guitar. And finally I switched to the bass because of this accident. So now I'm a bass player, but that was the beginning of everything.
Are you self-taught, or did you pursue any education?
That's another thing. I started drums with several teachers, and guitar I started with a teacher that came fresh from Berkeley.
Oh, wow.
So actually, my fingering on the guitar are very Berkeley-ish kind of thing. So a lot of people told me, oh, you started in Berkeley, when they see me playing, because the fingering of the chords and stuff, because of that. And he taught me a bunch of things and whatever. The bass, that's the irony, the bass, which is my main instrument now, I'm self-taught. Because when I switched from guitar to bass, I just adapted, all the fingerings and all the exercises. And from there, I just continued. Mm-hmm. So the bass, I'm self-taught with the bass.
One of the challenges that when you have multi-instrumentalists is kind of separating the two instruments, because it's very tempting for guitar players to play bass kind of more guitar-ish. And with bass, a lot of times it's the space between the notes where you want to leave some room, whereas with guitar, you're trying to fill as much of the space as you can accompanying. Have you run into that challenge particularly?
Well, fortunately, I didn't have that problem, because when I started, the switch was very early on in my career. So I was 17, and I knew guitar enough to know the chords, learn. I knew enough harmony, and I wasn't a guitar player per se.
Okay.
So I didn't have that problem. When I switched, I just started that bass universe, which is another animal, And I have a bunch of friends of mine that they play guitar, and they insist that they can play bass because they play guitar, And it's the endless fight of, no, brother, you cannot play bass. It's not the same, That's all the company.
So, and then moving on from the transition, you started out in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
And you're self-taught. You transitioned to, when did you come to the States?
1999.
Wow.
That was 21 years old. Yeah, 21 years ago. hmm Well, I started playing professionally at 17, and I was doing a lot of things. I was recording a lot of stuff. I was playing with a lot of bands, and things weren't that good. So I said to my wife, you know what? Let's go to London. That I have a couple friends there, and she was like, no, you know what? My mom is in Miami, and let's go first to Miami so I can learn English, and we can save some money, and then we go to England.
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh, well, okay. Let's spend just 6 months. 6 months in Miami, please. Okay. That was 21 years ago.
Wow.
I'm still waiting, to go to London. But then, so I came here to Miami, and I started, literally from scratch. The Music Magazine Ray 5 was my only base at the time. $200 in a while, and well, I started, playing here and there, and making myself known, and playing any kind of gig that I could, put my hands on, and kind of music. Because fortunately, Venezuelan musicians are by default they're good.
Mm.
They are obviously like everywhere else there are bad apples, but by default, when you say I'm from Venezuela, it's very likely that's going to be a good musician.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've thought about it. It's some geographical component of that thing, that the part of South America where we're at the top, all the influences come getting to the continent through Venezuela first. So we can handle a very wide range of music genres and styles.
Mm-hmm.
And hear a lot of music, different music. So pretty much I'm telling you this because I was always a freelance kind of musician. So I played with everybody, with a bunch of musicians. So I was strict trained to play any kind of music. So that helped me to, struggle here and there and make a name myself little by little.
Sure. Well, and during these years that you were playing, there was a lot going on with influences from whether they be from, you have to the south, you've got Brazil, you've got a lot of the South American, you'll have the Afro-Antillian things coming from the Caribbean, you'd have the American music that I know in Latin America, a lot of people were excited about because they're like, oh yeah, and some people culturally would actually affix themselves. I remember I was living in Puerto Rico when my good friend came to me with the Woodstock album, and he's like, wow, you really got to hear, this is great, Jimi Hendrix, man, and all this. and he's like, all of these little things that would add in little gems that you kind of go, okay, I'm gonna.
Of course, I remember that my first influence. I think I was 9 years old. Yeah, 8, 9 years old, and a lot of people don't like to hear this because it's so much. But the first influence that I can think of was ABBA. Do you remember ABBA?
ABBA, yeah.
I mean, at that time when I was 8, I was like totally blown away with that band. I read all the credits. I had the record, the actual record, and I listened to it and 1, 2, 3 times, and I was totally obsessed with the drums. And you know what's funny? To me, it's moving. Years later, I hear ABBA music, and I can listen to this. I can recognize my own bass playing with the Roger Gunnarsson's.
Wow.
And that's strange because at that time, at 9 years old, bass playing wasn't at all I wanted to play drums. Mm-hmm. How come I can recognize things that I do that Gunnarsson's did on those records? The only explanation is that it got into the system unconsciously.
Hmm.
To me, it's really mind blowing.
Well, and one of the things that I think a lot of people don't know that ABBA, coming with their European roots, did a whole bit of they actually had their whole book in Spanish too. And
Hmm.
and it was good. It wasn't one of these like with an accent. It was very clean
Oh yeah,
Spanish.
oh yeah. But what I really liked about ABBA is the innovations, the songs, the forms,
Hmm.
the arrangements. They did a lot for pop music,
Hmm.
and actually, it's something in Sweden's water. I don't know what it is, but they have great musicians in Sweden. It's,
Gotcha.
it's not even funny. So I can think of three main influences. ABBA was the first one.
Hmm.
Queen. I was like crazy about Queen.
Hmm.
Crazy. And the third one would be Rush. Crazy about Rush. Like, you know. So those three guys are like my childhood memories are, you know, surrounded by those three acts.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And with that foundation, kind of fast forwarding ahead, Cheyenne, how did you connect? How did you start working with Cheyenne and when?
That was 2014. That was 6 years ago. So I came to the States and I had no immigration papers. So I spent around 12 years undocumented. That means that I couldn't go on tour with anybody because I couldn't leave the country.
Hmm.
So it was really frustrating to me because I was building a reputation, playing, my ass off. I was like doing my stuff, and everybody was like, "Oh, this guy from Venezuela." Da, da, da. So I built a reputation, and I was requested by a lot of acts, but I couldn't go out of the country.
Mm.
It was terrible. 2004 was a really terrible year because a lot of people asked me to go out, and I couldn't. Okay, so the silver lining was that I was available all the time. So actually, I built a session work because of that, because I was always available. So I had the opportunity to meet and be friends with a bunch of musicians in town, and good guys, good, great cats. And eventually, I got a call. Once I got my papers, I'm good to go. I started doing stuff here and there. And this guy, which I played a bunch of times with, he was the Cheyenne's musical director. And he was at the time, he was doing some Grammy stuff with a band of the Grammys. He was doing some acts, some tributes to some artists at the Grammys in Las Vegas, I remember. And he left a message. And I thought, when I saw the missed call, I thought, oh, his call is Doug Emery. I thought, oh, maybe the basis for that act can't make it. And so I called him. Hey, Doug, how are you, man? What's going on? Hey, exact words. Ricardo, do you play keyboards? Uh, yes. Bro, are you willing to play with Cheyenne? Just like that.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Well, the thing is that to me, you're the guy, but they wanted, the producer and I don't know who wanted to take a listen to you, and can you come tomorrow? And I was like, okay, no problem, man. Yeah, you have to prepare three songs.
Hmm.
So which one? This. And the funny story is that when I was in Venezuela, I played in a top 40 band, and my fingers bled. I mean,
Oh.
I played that music forever. I knew it by heart, totally. So I was like, oh, okay, those three songs, okay, cool. And the keyboard stuff is because half of the repertoire, half of all the set list was played with a synth.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. So that night, I thought it was like an informal reunion with the producer and blah, blah. That night, I got an email from Doc saying, you know what, guys, remember to bring the in-ears for the audition. And I saw the copy, all the guys, and then I realized that I was going to a full blast audition with the best cats in town. I was like, man, so I got it wrong. Still, it's not my gig. So I remember clearly, next morning, 11 a.m., I went, I say hi to all my friends that we were all in line. Wait, okay, next. And I was like, okay, cool. When I got into, half of the band were my friends already. We played forever,
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ricardo, hey, man, what's up? Hey, a long time, bro. Okay, get it. Okay, see. I went home, and at 5 p.m., Doc called me. Hey, bro, tomorrow starting rehearsals, 10-hour a day for a full month. Okay? What are you talking about, man? I'm in? Yes, you are in. Of course, I'm telling you all the scheduling. Wow. So, and that's a totally different story because I went there. So that, I went there and then we started rehearsing. But we didn't know for sure because they wanted to do some changes and change the whole band. I was the only new. I wasn't, they were putting together a tour.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't rehearsing a bass player. They were putting together a tour. So I had the burden of have to learn the song and be,
Mm-hmm.
precise and perfect because they're not going to wait for a guy
To catch up.
So the struggle was real, but that's what happened.
Wow. Well, and it's such a good gig, and I know there may be a lot of people that won't even know who Cheyenne is because he's been huge in the Latin American circuit. And I was actually living in Puerto Rico back in the day. I arrived in Puerto Rico the year after Cheyenne was born. And so I was still there when Los Chicos got started. So he would have been auditioning for Menudo, and they didn't make the cut because he was too young. And then they did Los Chicos, and admittedly, the teenage boy band thing wasn't my style, so I did not really pay too much attention to what they were doing. And then I left Puerto Rico right about the year after Los Chicos broke up. But I had heard the name Cheyenne, and because he had done his solo act stuff and he did the telenovelas, and so for people that don't know, he's got about 21 albums, and I think around over 40 million sold. And so it's huge. And in all of Latin America, when you mention, everybody knows him, but in the States, you might go, who?
Yeah, but it's the Latin market,
yeah,
to be honest, because he never did the crossover. He never recorded English.
Mm-hmm.
He never did it. So it's just Latin America, Spain and Latin America. But we played from Canada to Chile, the whole country, 20 countries, the whole continent. Just Belize and Brazil, those exceptions.
Wow.
And he's done promotion in Turkey, France, Brazil, but the English thing, I think, is what stopped him to actually go there with the band as part of a tour or something.
Well, the language has been for many a challenge, and making the crossover, no matter how strong you were in the Latin American market, has been kind of difficult. I remember when Julio Iglesias kind of made the leap, and they had done a conjoined record with, maybe it was a Diana Ross or some American artist, and they could get him to sing a little in English, and so it was trying to squeak in when he was huge in Latin America, but here in the States, it's like, so
Yeah,
what?
exactly, exactly.
So wow, and then you've done 2 world tours with Cheyenne.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah, I remember we started rehearsing on November 2014,
Hmm.
and we hit the tour February 2015, and we did year and a half tour, a year and a half tour. That's what he does all the
Wow.
time, every time, year and a half. And this past tour, the one that was canceled, we were entering the second year. We
Wow.
started 2018, and we played the last gig February something in Mexico. It was 2 years. We were entering the second year of tour.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this would probably be a good point to ask again, kind of because it's music specific. Instruments are the extension of your voice. What kind of gear are you using? What are you playing on?
Well, the first brand that supported me was Lakeland bassist, this guy from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing instruments. I mean, I love that bass, and still my main bass in studio. That is, it's totally flawless. Just flat, just a bit of bass maybe, and that's it. That's it. It sounds right off out of the box. It sounds perfect. And live still under construction and everything is fine. Then I was signed with Hardkey Systems,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't use with Cheyenne. I don't use any kind of amplification because they have like this clean design on stage, so they don't allow any kind of instrument amps. And the guitar players, they do have amps, but below the stage. Obviously, they offered me that, but I don't like that. I mean, if I don't have the guy here, moving my clothes, I'm not into that. So,
Yeah.
recent years. So these guys, Hardkey, they bought this company, this small company called Michael Kelly, and they offered me to, do you want to test these basses? And I was like, okay, cool. Let me want to see. And it happened that they sound fantastic. And I started testing them actually, in war-like situations, playing stadiums and arenas with the guys, and outdoors and indoors and different weathers, and these basses are fantastic. So that's my main live bass is the Michael Kelly, which
Nice.
are very, very affordable instruments, but very good.
And do you have a choice in strings on your instruments?
Well, Lakeland, they have strings. Hardkey. Are you asking me about strings? No. And I used for years. I used that area. Now I'm using Hardkey strings because they make great strings too. So that's what I do.
Got you. And
Hmm.
are there any other components or parts of your sound chain that help you get your unique sound?
Well, I usually I'm used to play with very little process.
Mm-hmm.
For years, I played my bass, my cable straight to the amp. Then I added a pedal, but it was a tuner. So, yeah, because the sound is in the fingertips.
Yeah.
That's a fact. So I really don't like too much process. And lately, I've been using a little pedal, very nice pedal called the Multis Tom from Zoom. It's just a single pedal, but it's like a pedal board. You have a bunch of modeling amps, a bunch of pedals, and you can do a tame inside the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I use it, and I have just a patch, just an amp modeling to give it a little enhancement, just a little more body, just a little. But other than that, it's just my bass, that little pedal, and my amp.
It garbled a little. What was the name of that pedal again?
The Multis Tom It's a Zoom pedal.
Zoom. Okay, gotcha.
I think it's the B60. Yes, Zoom MS60B. Multi-strum bass pedal. Super cool.
So, Ricardo, we're talking in times of the pandemic, and I know a lot of bands they were in tour or they were planning on touring, and everything has gone on hold. I'm sure that's true with you guys as well. What is your plan to resume when you're able to?
To be honest, it's got me. You know, I didn't see that coming. Obviously, no, none of us, saw that coming. I remember I was doing a TV show when they declared the pandemic, and 2 days later they canceled the tour, and we were missing 7 countries still. And the thing is that I think the showbiz is going to be, unfortunately, one of the last things, if not the last thing to open, because all we do is the no-no of all this pandemic. Huge gathering of people, airports, or studio places that are enclosed. A lot of people enclosed in a non-ventilated area, which is a control room. So all we do is the no-no. So, I'm waiting to see. Obviously, this is gonna pass. It's gonna be over. Sooner or later, it's gonna be over, and we're gonna restart and resume the whole thing. But to be honest, I really don't know the specifics. In the meantime, I'm doing a lot of recordings remotely from my home studio. And now I started to go to studios, with all the masks and all the stuff to record things. So things are like starting to waking up very slowly, but, I don't know what's going to happen, to be honest.
Gotcha. Well, and if people want to stay on top of what you're doing, I know that you've got a presence on social media, Instagram. It is at BassLow.
Yes.
And you've got Facebook. I'm sure if people look up Ricardo Martinez, maybe Ricardo Martinez Bass.
2. That would be perfect.
Gotcha. Well, Ricardo, we appreciate you taking time. I'm glad the good thing about the pandemic, it has allowed us to connect with people at their home. Folks, you've seen him here. Ricardo Martinez coming to you live on Bass Musician Magazine.
Thank you.